Hello, you're welcome to the biology series with Excellence Simplified. And today we're going to be taking a very important topic in your JAMB and WAEC, plant nutrition. So basically we're going to take plant and animal nutrition in this video, but let's start with plant nutrition. Let's get started. All right. Now, the first thing you have to know is plant nutrition refers to how plants obtain and utilize their nutrients to manufacture their food, grow, repair tissues, and carry out metabolic activities. So basically, when we talk about plant nutrition, we are talking about how plants obtain their food, how plants manufacture their food in order to grow, in order to repair their tissues, in order to carry out other metabolic activities. That is plant nutrition. How does plant eat, feed? Now, plants use autotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic mode of nutrition, please pay attention very closely here. When they say autotrophic mode of nutrition means that they make their own food from simple inorganic substances. Organisms that can manufacture their own food are called autotrophs. And examples of autotrophs are green plants. Green plants are autotrophs because they can manufacture their own food. All right. Now, the main method plants use to manufacture their food is called photosynthesis. Do you understand? So green plants are autotrophs. Now let's look at the types of plant nutrition. We have autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition in plants. But now you must note that the main type of nutrition in plants is autotrophic nutrition because autotrophs can manufacture their food. So most plants manufacture their food. So this is the major type of nutrition where plants use carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight to produce glucose. Glucose is the food now, the carbohydrates. But some plants also carry out heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Heterotrophs are those that cannot manufacture their food. Do you understand? Some plants cannot manufacture their food. And JAMB will test your ability here. So some rare cases, some plants feed on insects or dead organisms. For example, we have insectivorous or carnivorous plants. There are some plants that what they do is they trap insects. They open their leaves, like I'm calling it leaf now, and their leaves have good scents, nice scents, and bright colors to attract insects. So once insect lands on them, they will close and release digestive juice to digest them. Those are insectivorous plants. Example, pitcher plant, sundew, Venus flytrap. Then we have saprophytes too. Those ones that live on dead decaying matter, like mushroom. We have parasitic plants too, like mistletoe and doda, that will live on other plants, derive their nutrients and the rest. So these are heterotrophic plants. They cannot manufacture their food. However, the major form of nutrition in plants is the autotrophic mode of nutrition. All right. Now, you see now, as a JAMB sometimes says that not all plants are autotrophic. All right. Now, what are the requirements? What are the requirements for plant nutrition? Now, the requirement for plant nutrition are number one, water. So for plant nutrition to take place, that is for photosynthesis to take place, water must be present and the water is absorbed through the roots. Then carbon dioxide must be present. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is absorbed through the stomata of the leaves. So the stomata is found in the leaves, small openings that can open and close in the leaf. So when it opens, the plant can trap carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And while the water is gotten from the ground through the roots, then the tissue that transports water from the roots to different parts of the plant is called the xylem. It's called the xylem. Xylem is spelled, this is xylem. So xylem helps to transport water. They ask this question a lot. Transport water from down to all the parts of the plant, while phloem transports food, manufactured food from the leaf. You know, food is manufactured in the leaf. So the phloem tissue transports food from the leaf to different parts of the plant. Now in exam, you see something like this. They will draw a tree. After drawing a tree, let's say this is a tree, they'll do one arrow down here and then another arrow pointing up. Then they'll not ask you, they'll not say this one is I, this one is I. The one pointing down is transporting food from the leaf down. So the one that is pointing down is phloem. While the one that is pointing up is transporting water from the roots upwards. So the one that is pointing up is xylem. So you see this in JAMB a lot. The arrow pointing up is phloem. The arrow pointing down is, the arrow pointing up is xylem, while the arrow pointing down is phloem, because food is transported from the leaves down, while water is transported from down upwards. All right. Now, another requirement for photosynthesis for plant nutrition is light, and the light source is mainly sunlight. Then chlorophyll is also a requirement, and chlorophyll is that green pigment in plants, and the chlorophyll is located inside the chloroplast of a plant. The next thing that is, so anytime you see that green thing, that thing that makes plant green, it is called chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll is located in the chloroplast of the plant. Now, another thing that plant needs is mineral salts, minerals like nitrogen and the rest from the soil. Now, mineral salts. So these are the requirements for plant nutrition to take place. And we said that the major way plants manufacture their food is through photosynthesis, right? So let's look at this photosynthesis. There is a question they will ask you here. It goes beyond the definition. It goes beyond the definition. So you can know the definition, but even when they ask the question, you might not be able to answer if you don't take note of this. Now, photosynthesis is the process by which green plants manufacture carbohydrates, that's their food, glucose, from water and carbon dioxide using sunlight trapped by chlorophyll. Now, photosynthesis is the process whereby green plants manufacture their food in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, right? We are looking at how plants, you will never see a plant using plate and spoon to eat, because they manufacture their own food. They feed, they manufacture their own food, and they manufacture their food. The food they manufacture is called glucose. Glucose is the formula for glucose, C6H12O6. They manufacture their food, and before you can manufacture something, you use something to manufacture something, right? Now, what they use to manufacture their food is carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. Remember, chlorophyll is that green pigment in plants, and what the chlorophyll is doing is to help to trap sunlight as a source of energy. Now, when the chlorophyll, the pigment now have trapped sunlight, so the chlorophyll is working like a solar panel. It traps the sunlight, converts it to energy form that is usable, and then the energy is now used to convert carbon dioxide and water to form glucose. And you can see a byproduct giving off here. Oxygen is giving off. So you see the plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, because this is a reactant, this is a product, this is what is giving off. Do you understand? All right. Now, there are two main stages of photosynthesis, and I would like you to pay attention here. We have the light stage, or we call it the photochemical stage, light stage or photochemical stage, and we have the dark stage or carving cycle. Take note. Now, the light phase of photosynthesis occurs in the grana of the chloroplast, or you say the grana of the thylakoid. Thylakoid. They will ask you this question, is just check your JAMB past question, you see it. Light phase of photosynthesis occurs in the grana. You don't see grana in the options. You see thylakoid. So it occurs in the grana of the thylakoid in the chloroplast. Do you understand? And the light phase requires light. So the light phase is when that plant traps sunlight and stores energy, right? And the energy, it is stored as ATP and NADPH. ATP is called adenosine triphosphate, while NADPH is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. The H here is showing that it is reduced, the reduced form of it. So ATP and NADPH are produced in the light phase. They can ask you, where is ATP and NADPH produced? In which stage of photosynthesis is it produced? It's produced in the light phase. because the purpose of the light phase is to trap sunlight, convert it to usable energy, ATP and NADPH, and you store it for dark phase. All right. Another thing that is happening in the light phase is that water is split to give oxygen. That's photolysis. Now, there's a question they normally ask that the oxygen given out, like in this equation, the oxygen that is given out in this equation was done in what phase? Was produced in what phase? Is it in the light phase or in the dark phase? This oxygen that is given out was actually produced in the light phase during photolysis. And the oxygen given off here is gotten from water, because if we split water using light, that's photolysis. Photo means light, lysis means breakdown. So if we break down water using light, oxygen will be given off, and this is done in the light phase, of photosynthesis. All right, so basically that's that. Now the dark stage or the carving cycle, remember we said it occurs in two phases, right? The dark phase and the light phase. We've talked about the light phase. That in the light phase, it occurs in the grana of the thylakoid. It requires light. ATP and NADPH are produced. Water is split. That's photolysis. Now, the dark phase is also called the carving cycle. It is called carving cycle because it was named after the person that discovered it, Melvin Carvin. All right. Now, the carving cycle occurs in the stroma. The light phase occurs in the grana of the thylakoid. The carving cycle, that's the dark phase, occurs in the stroma. And it does not require light. That is why it is called dark phase of photosynthesis. It's not that it majorly happens in the night. That name, dark stage, does not really mean night, because dark phase of photosynthesis can even happen in the day, so long as the plant is not using light again, so long as plant have trapped enough energy and is now independent of light. So dark phase does not necessarily mean that it's taking place in the night. It can take place in the night, it can take place in the day, but the most important fact is that it is now independent of light. All right, now it does not, take note of where it occurs, in the stroma. Now it does not require light, but products from light stage are used. Carbon dioxide is reduced to glucose using ATP and NADPH. Remember that ATP and NADPH were produced in the light stage. Now this ATP and NADPH will be used to reduce carbon dioxide gotten from the atmosphere to form glucose, their food. That's the dark phase. I would not like to go into the stages of the carving cycle. If not, there are three stages. As carbon dioxide fixation, reduction, and regeneration. But for now, this is what you are expected to know. As you go higher, you learn that. All right. Now, but if you still want to learn the carving cycle in details, I have that video on my channel, so you can check it out. Now, factors affecting photosynthesis. What are the factors that affect photosynthesis? So you see this a lot. JAMB is always asking this. Factors affecting photosynthesis. Number one, light intensity. Light is just like I told you to look at your chlorophyll as a solar panel trapping sunlight. The intensity of the light, just imagine you have something that you're using solar to charge. The intensity of the light affects how the solar works, right? Now, the factors that affect photosynthesis, one, the light intensity, how intense the light is affects the light that is stored. All right. The second one is carbon dioxide concentration. We need carbon dioxide to synthesize our food. So if carbon dioxide is low, it will affect the rate of photosynthesis. The temperature also affects water availability. Remember, we need water for photosynthesis to take place. Chlorophyll availability. Chlorophyll is what will help us trap the sunlight. So that will also affect. So these are the factors that affect photosynthesis. All right, mineral nutrition in plants. Let's move on. All right, mineral nutrition in plants. Now, plants absorb minerals as ions dissolved in soil water. And if some of these minerals are deficient, there is a problem. So let's look at some of the minerals and their roles and their deficiency symptoms. Now, you see this a lot in exams. So the first mineral we are looking at is nitrogen. and the role of nitrogen is protein synthesis. Now, nitrogen is abundant in the air, in the atmosphere, but the one abundant there, we cannot use it because we don't have what it takes to break the triple bond in nitrogen. If you look at the structure of nitrogen, nitrogen is like this, and then there's a triple bond, then another one. So we, as a human beings, or even plants, cannot break down this triple bond. When we talk about nitrogen cycle, we talk about this, how nitrogen can be fixed. But now plants take in the nitrogen from the soil, and it is used for protein synthesis and growth, meaning without the nitrogen, plants cannot synthesize protein, and it is needed. Now, if it is deficient, if nitrogen is deficient, it will lead to stunted growth and pale or yellow leaves. There's a question they normally ask. Of course, there's past question after this, so I'll be giving you past questions after this class. JAMB past questions, JAMB and WAEC past questions. There is a question they normally ask in JAMB, that the yellowing of the leaves is deficiency of what? Which what mineral? The answer is nitrogen. So if nitrogen is deficient, it becomes pale. The leaves become pale or yellow. Then the next one is phosphorus. Phosphorus is used for the synthesis of ATP and nucleic acids. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. You're hearing the phosphate there. And nucleic acid is we also use phosphorus. Phosphorus is also needed for the synthesis of nucleic acid, because the building block of nucleic acid is nucleotide, and nucleotide is made up of three things, made up of nitrogenous base, pentose sugar, and phosphate group. So phosphate group is also required. I'll talk about nucleic acid in a different video because it's actually broad. Now, deficiency will lead to poor root growth. Now, potassium is needed for enzyme activation, and the deficiency will be brown scalch at tips and edges. You see the tips of plants having being brown. Potassium is deficient. Then calcium is used for cell wall formation. Remember that calcium is in human beings strong bones and teeth. Since plants lack bones and teeth now, deficiency of calcium will lead to weak stems and roots. So the stems will be very weak. The roots will be very weak. That's deficiency of calcium. Then magnesium is part of chlorophyll molecule, and deficiency will lead to chlorosis. Chlorosis means yellowing of leaves due to lack of chlorophyll. Chlorosis means yellowing of leaves due to lack of chlorophyll, and that is caused by deficiency of magnesium. We've seen two things that can cause yellowing of leaves, right? We've seen nitrogen deficiency and magnesium. Next one is iron. Iron is involved in the formation of chlorophyll, and deficiency is yellowing of young leaves. Yellowing of young leaves. Sulfur, synthesis of amino acids, and deficiency is yellowing of young leaves also. All right. So take note, because they normally ask, what is chlorosis? Chlorosis means yellowing of leaves due to lack of chlorophyll. Now, plant adaptations for nutrition. Let's see how some plants adapt for nutrition. The first type of plant here is xerophytes. Anytime you hear zero, zero means dry. Xerophytes are plants that live in dry area, dry environments like deserts. Examples of plants that live in dry environments like the xerophytes is cactus. Now, cactus, they know that their environment is very, very dry. So they will look for a way to survive. How do we conserve water? So to conserve water, since they don't have water, they will have thick cuticle. Thick cuticle, that is, and their leaves are reduced to spine. If you observe desert plants, you notice that they don't have broad leaves, because the broader the leaves, the more water is given off. So their leaf is reduced to spine, like you have something like this. Small leaf, so that it will reduce the rate of transpiration, the rate at which water is going out. And that leaf too is covered with something, a waterproof like substance. Then this is done to reduce to ensure water conservation. Next one is mesophytes. Mesophytes, they live in moderate environment, not too much water, not too dry. Now the mesophytes, example, hibiscus, they have normal water supply. Hydrophytes, hydro means water, they live in water like water lily and they have large air spaces and floating leaves that can help them get rid of the excess water. We also have the carnivorous plants like pitcher plants, and I talked about it earlier on that they obtain their nitrogen from insects. That is, they use insects as their food. They cannot manufacture their food. I don't know, Ant is pressing this board, and as it's pressing it, it's actually affecting it. Products and uses of photosynthesis. Now the products, different from the reactant. The products of photosynthesis, number one, glucose. Now glucose is used for respiration and is converted to starch for storage. You know, the storage form of carbohydrates. The storage form of carbohydrates in plants is starch. Another product of photosynthesis is oxygen, and the oxygen that is produced is released into the atmosphere. So it's actually a byproduct of photosynthesis. Now, lipids and proteins are synthesized from glucose in plants. What are the importance of photosynthesis? Produces food for most living organisms. Now, there's a question they normally ask, that photosynthesis in plants, that they say plants manufacture their food for dash. Is it for plants? The options will be like plants alone. B will say for animals alone. C will say for plants and animals. D will say none of the above. Check your JAMB past question. You agree with me. Now, plants manufacture their food for both plants and animals, not only for themselves, because human beings, animals, will depend directly or indirectly on plants for our food. So plants manufacture their food for both plants and animals. All right, moving on. They release oxygen for respiration. We need the oxygen. Plants release oxygen and we need the oxygen, human beings. So as plants is giving out oxygen, we are taking in oxygen. Now they form the foundation of the food chain or food web. Producers always start food chain. So in food chain should be the topic I'm chasing next. Then controls CO2 and oxygen balance in the atmosphere. As animals are giving out CO2, plants are actually taking in CO2 and giving out oxygen for us to use. All right, now test for starch in leaf. Now you see this equation. To test for starch, what you use to test for starch is iodine solution. So if you want to test for starch, if you add drops of iodine solution, if the solution turns blue-black, you know that it indicates the presence of starch. If it does not, then starch is absent. So the positive test for starch is blue-black coloration. Let's look at some past question. JAMB 20, this ant is controlling the board more than I'm controlling it. The raw materials needed for photosynthesis are dash. The answer there is what? B, water and carbon dioxide. Those are the two raw materials needed for photosynthesis to take place. Next one, which mineral deficiency in plants results in chlorosis? The answer there is what? C. Remember, chlorosis. We are looking at yellowing of the leaves due to lack of chlorophyll, and deficiency in magnesium will cause that. Next question, the stage of photosynthesis where water is split to release oxygen is the dash. The answer is C, light stage. That's JAMB 2012. Next question, JAMB 2018. Which pigment traps light energy for photosynthesis? The answer is chlorophyll. I told you to look at chlorophyll like a solar panel that traps sunlight. So that's the answer. All right, so we are going to move on to animal nutrition. All right, we'll continue with animal nutrition in the next video. So animal nutrition will continue in the next video. See you in the next video. If you're not subscribed, subscribe so you don't miss out in that particular one. See you in the next video.